The river looked calm, too calm. And the first bullet came from a place no one was watching, 30 meters of black water. No muzzle flash, no sound except the scream. A man down, blood spreading dark across rocky ground, and 12 Navy SEALs spinning in circles like children lost in the woods. The shooter was invisible, impossible, submerged. And the only person who saw it coming was the one they'd been ignoring all night. Her name was Mara Vance, petty officer, rookie, quiet, unproven. The kind of operator who got dismissed before she even opened her mouth. But when that rifle cracked from beneath the Blackstone Canal, she didn't flinch. She didn't panic. She fired. And everything changed. If you want to know how a soldier everyone underestimated became the only thing standing between a team and total collapse, stay with me until the end. Hit that like button. Drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from so I can see how far this story travels. Because what happened that night on the canal wasn't just about bullets. It was about trust, betrayal, and the kind of courage that doesn't need permission to act. Let's begin. The Blackstone Canal didn't appear on most maps anymore. It was a relic, a narrow, deep-cut waterway that threaded through the borderlands like a scar left by old wars. The locals avoided it. Smugglers loved it. And on this particular night, Recon Team Atlas was moving along its eastern embankment with the kind of precision that came from years of operating in places where mistakes got you killed. 12 operators. Full kit. Suppressed weapons, night vision, comms discipline so tight you could hear a pin drop 3 clicks out. They were ghosts. Professionals. The kind of unit that didn't get surprised. Except tonight, they were about to be. Petty Officer Mara Vance moved at the rear flank, scanning left, while her team advanced in a staggered column. Her rifle was up, finger indexed along the receiver, breathing controlled. She'd done this 100 times in training, but this was her first real deployment with Atlas, her first time operating with Tier 1 personnel, and she could feel the weight of that, not in her gear but in the glances, the silence when she spoke, the way Chief Nolan Cross had looked at her during the pre-mission brief like she was a liability he hadn't asked for. "Stay in your lane, Vance," he'd said. "We don't need a rookie playing hero." She hadn't argued, hadn't defended herself, she just nodded and checked her gear, because Mara Vance didn't need to prove herself with words. The wind came cold off the canal, carrying the smell of wet stone and rotting vegetation. The water below was black, so black it looked like oil. No moonlight touched it. No ripples disturbed it. It was perfectly, unnaturally still. And that's what caught Mara's attention. She slowed, eyes narrowing behind her nods. The current should have been moving. The Blackstone ran fast this time of year. Spring melt from the highlands fed it, turned it into a narrow torrent that could drag a body under in seconds. But right now, right here, the surface looked controlled, like something was displacing the flow, redirecting it. Mara keyed her comms, voice low. "Atlas 6 to Atlas Actual. I've got an anomaly on the water, 30 meters south-southwest, currents disrupted." Static crackled. Then Lieutenant Aaron Pike's voice came back, calm and clipped. "Atlas Actual copies. What kind of disruption?" "Can't confirm yet, sir. Could be debris. Could be rookie nerves." That wasn't Pike. That was Cross. Chief Nolan Cross. 6'2", built like a tank, voice like gravel in a blender. He was the senior enlisted on the team, the kind of operator who'd been doing this since before Mara was old enough to enlist. He had the respect of everyone on Atlas. He had the ear of command. And he had exactly 0 patience for what he called uncertainty in the field. Mara's jaw tightened, but she kept her voice even. "Negative, Chief. I'm not seeing wind patterns that match the surface movement. Something's down there." "Yeah," Cross shot back. "Water. It's called a river, Vance. We're not stopping the advance because you're jumpy." A few scattered chuckles broke over the comms. Not loud. Not cruel. Just dismissive. The kind of sound that said, "We've all been there, kid." Pike's voice cut through. "Atlas 6, maintain position and keep eyes on it. We're not stopping, but if you see something concrete, call it." "Copy that, sir." Mara didn't say anything else. She dropped back into her scan pattern, rifle sweeping left to right, but her eyes kept drifting to the canal, to that unnatural stillness. to the way the surface seemed to breathe, slowly, deliberately, like something living was holding its breath just beneath. She'd seen this before. Not here, not in this context, but she'd seen it, and that was the problem. The team moved another 40 meters along the embankment, boots crunching softly on loose gravel. The night pressed in around them, thick and silent except for the wind and the distant hum of insects. Atlas was heading for a relay point, a cache of surveillance equipment left by forward elements 2 weeks prior. Intel said the area was cold. No hostiles. No activity. Intel was wrong. The first shot came at 1:47 local time. No warning. No muzzle flash, just a sharp, flat crack that split the night wide open. And then Corporal Dane Richter, point man, husband, father of 2, screamed and went down hard, clutching his leg. "Contact! Contact!" The team exploded into action. Operators dropped into cover behind rocks, weapons up, scanning for targets. Flashlights carved through the darkness. Night vision flared green and useless against the ink-black shadows. "Where? Where is he?" "Rooftops! Check the rooftops!" "Negative. No visual." Pike's voice cut through the chaos, sharp and commanding. "Atlas! Sound off! Who's got eyes on the shooter?" "Negative! Negative! Nothing on thermals!" Mara stayed low, pressed against a jagged outcrop of stone, rifle shouldered, scanning not up, but down, toward the canal, toward the water that had been too still, too deliberate. And there, 30 meters out, just below the surface, she saw it. Micro ripples, moving against the current, a disturbance shaped like a human torso, drifting slowly left, controlled and methodical. The kind of movement that didn't belong to debris or wildlife. The kind of movement that belonged to a trained operator using the water as concealment. Mara's pulse spiked. Her breath caught. Every instinct she had screamed recognition. She keyed her comms. "Atlas Actual, I have the shooter, submerged. Canal, 30 meters, drifting left." Silence. Then Cross's voice, harsh and disbelieving. "What?" "Shooter is in the water, Chief. I can see displacement patterns. He's using a—" "That's impossible. Nobody shoots from underwater." Pike's voice broke in, tight with stress. "Vance, are you sure?" "Yes, sir. I'm—" The second shot screamed past Pike's helmet, so close it shaved paint off the rail mount. He dropped flat, cursing. Across the embankment, the medic, Petty Officer Lena Ortiz, jerked backward and collapsed, blood blooming across her shoulder. "Medic down! Medic down!" Panic spread like fire. Voices overlapped, frantic and confused. "I don't see anything! Where the hell is he shooting from? This doesn't make sense!" Mara didn't wait for permission. She pivoted, rifle snapping toward the canal, and fired. 3 controlled bursts, 5.56mm rounds punching through the water's surface in tight groups. She led the target, anticipating drift, compensating for refraction. And for half a second, a shape broke the surface. A man, masked in woven reeds and camouflage netting, breathing tube trailing from his mouth, rifle in his hands, some kind of custom bolt-action rig, waterproofed, designed for exactly this kind of insanity. He surfaced, fired, and vanished again before anyone else could even process what they were seeing. But Mara's rounds had found him. Red mist bloomed in the water. The ripples stopped moving. Silence crashed down like a hammer. The entire team turned to stare at Mara. She stood there, rifle still shouldered, breath coming fast now, adrenaline finally catching up. She didn't say anything, didn't explain, didn't defend. She just lowered her weapon and waited. Pike was the first to speak. His voice was quiet, almost reverent. "What the hell was that?" Mara met his eyes. "River sniper technique, sir. Submerged concealment, breath control, custom optics. It's rare." "Rare?" Cross stepped forward, face flushed, eyes hard. "Try classified. Try black book. How the hell do you know about it?" Mara didn't answer, because the truth was complicated, and the truth was dangerous. They secured Richter and Ortiz, applied pressure, called for exfil. The sniper's body was recovered from the canal an hour later. Male, mid-30s, no identification, No tags, nothing. Professional. Ghost. The rifle was a custom build, polymer composite stock, sealed optics, underwater firing mechanism that looked like something out of a DARPA fever dream. Pike examined it in silence, then looked at Mara. You've seen this before. It wasn't a question. Mara hesitated, then nodded. Yes, sir. Where? Training, a long time ago. With who? She didn't answer. Cross stepped in, voice low and dangerous. You don't get to stay quiet on this one, Vance. That technique, it's not in any manual. It's not taught at Coronado. It's not even supposed to exist outside of a handful of old guard operators who... He stopped, his eyes narrowed. Who trained you? Mara's jaw tightened. I'd rather not say, Chief. That's not how this works. Pike raised a hand. Stand down, Cross. We'll debrief properly when we're back at the safe house. For now, Vance saved lives. Let's focus on that. Cross didn't back down. He stared at Mara like she was a puzzle he needed to solve, or a threat he needed to eliminate. And Mara stared back, calm and unflinching, because she'd been underestimated her entire career, and tonight she'd just proven everyone wrong. The safe house was a squat concrete structure buried in the hills 3 clicks from the canal. It smelled like mold and gun oil. The lights flickered. The heat didn't work. It was the kind of place you went when you needed to disappear. Atlas sat in a loose circle, gear still on, weapons close. Richter and Ortiz had been medevaced out. The rest of them were running on adrenaline and coffee, waiting for answers. Pike stood at the head of the room, arms crossed, face unreadable. All right, let's talk about what happened. Mara sat apart from the group, back against the wall, rifle across her lap. She didn't look nervous, didn't look defensive. Just quiet, watchful, cross-paced. What happened is we got ambushed by a ghost using a technique that's supposed to be buried in some Black Ops archive, and the only person who knew how to counter it was our rookie. He stopped, turned to face Mara. So I'll ask again. Who taught you? Mara met his eyes. Commander Elias Rowe, retired SEAL. He ran an experimental unit about 10 years ago. I trained under him before I joined Atlas. The room went still. Everyone knew that name. Elias Rowe was a legend. One of the old guard. The kind of operator who didn't just follow orders, he wrote them. He'd pioneered half the unconventional tactics the teams use today. And then, just as suddenly as he'd risen, he'd disappeared. Retired. Vanished into the wind. Pike's expression didn't change. Rowe trained you in river sniper techniques? Yes, sir. Along with a lot of other things. Why? Because he believed the battlefield was changing. That we needed to think beyond rooftops and ridgelines, that water, shadows, and verticality were the future of asymmetric warfare. Cross scoffed. That's a nice speech, Vance, but it doesn't explain why you didn't mention any of this before. I wasn't asked. You weren't... Cross stepped forward, fists clenched. You're part of a team. You don't withhold tactical intelligence because nobody specifically asked you for it. Pike cut in. Cross, stand down. Sir, with all due respect, I said stand down. Cross stepped back, jaw tight, eyes still locked on Mara. Mara didn't move, didn't flinch. She just sat there, calm as glass, while the room simmered with tension. And then the door opened. 2 men stepped in. Civilian clothes, military posture, badges clipped to their belts, military investigators. Pike straightened. Can I help you? The lead investigator, a thin man with wire-rimmed glasses and a bureaucrat smile, nodded. Lieutenant Pike, we're here about Petty Officer Vance. Mara's pulse kicked up, but her face stayed neutral. The investigator dropped a folder onto the table. Paper spilled out. Diagrams. Maps. Access logs. We've been tracking a series of political assassinations across the region. High-value targets, all killed using submerged sniper techniques. The kind of techniques that, as of 3 hours ago, we thought were theoretical. He looked at Mara. Until you demonstrated otherwise. The room went cold. Mara stood slowly, rifle still in her hands. You think I'm involved? We think you have knowledge that's awfully convenient, knowledge that matches the MO of every hit we've been investigating. Pike stepped forward. That's insane. She just saved this team. Or, Cross said quietly, she knew exactly where to look because she's seen it before, because she's done it before. Mara turned to face him. You really believe that? Cross didn't blink. I believe you're hiding something, and I believe people like you, people with specialized training and no official record of it, are the exact kind of assets foreign actors love to flip. The accusation hung in the air like smoke. Mara's hands tightened on her rifle, not in anger, not in fear, just weariness. Because she'd known this was coming, the investigator pulled out another sheet. These diagrams were recovered from a safe house linked to one of the assassinations. They detail submerged firing positions, water current analysis, breath control timing. He slid the paper toward Mara. The handwriting style matches drafts found in your personal effects during a routine security sweep. Mara's blood ran cold. She'd never written those diagrams, but someone had. Someone who knew how she worked, how she thought. Someone who'd set her up. Pike's voice was low. Vance, tell me you didn't do this. Mara looked him in the eye. I didn't. Then where did those diagrams come from? I don't know, sir. The investigator stepped forward. Petty Officer Vance, until this investigation is concluded, you're relieved of duty. Surrender your weapons and credentials. The room erupted. What? You can't be serious. She just saved our lives. But the investigator didn't budge. And neither did Pike. He looked at Mara, jaw tight, eyes searching her face for something, truth maybe, or guilt. Mara set her rifle on the table, then her sidearm, then her badge. She didn't argue, didn't plead. She just stood there, disarmed and alone, while the team she'd bled for watched in silence. Cross smiled. Just a little. Just enough. And Mara saw it. They confined her to a back room. Concrete walls. One cot. No windows. A guard posted outside. Mara sat on the edge of the cot, hands clasped, staring at the floor. Her mind raced. The diagrams. The handwriting. The setup was surgical, professional. Whoever had done this knew her connection to Roe, knew the techniques, knew how to make her look guilty without ever pointing a direct finger. And the only person who could clear her name was the one person who'd taught her in the first place, Commander Elias Rowe. Mara pulled a small device from the lining of her boot, a microtransmitter, no bigger than a coin. Emergency comms, old school, the kind of thing Rowe had insisted she carry. Just in case, he'd said, just in case the world forgets who you are. She activated it. One pulse, a frequency only Rowe would recognize. And then she waited, because if help didn't come soon, the story would end with her name buried next to a lie. And Mara Vance refused to let that happen. Bump. Hours passed. The guard changed shifts, the lights dimmed, the safe house settled into uneasy silence. And then, just after 0400, Mara heard it. Footsteps. Calm. Measured. Familiar. The door opened. Commander Elias Rowe stepped inside. He was older now, gray at the temples, lines carved deep around his eyes. But he moved like he always had. Purposeful, controlled, impossible to ignore. He looked at Mara, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. Then he smiled. Just a little. Heard you got yourself into trouble. Mara exhaled, relief flooding through her. Something like that. Rowe pulled up a chair, sat down, eyes scanning her face. You okay? I've been better. They treating you right? Define right. Rowe's jaw tightened. Yeah, that's what I thought. He stood, walked to the door, and opened it. Pike was standing outside, arms crossed. The two men stared at each other for a long moment. Then Pike stepped aside. Rowe gestured for Mara to follow. Come on, we're ending this. The investigators were still in the main room, reviewing files, drinking bad coffee. Cross stood nearby, arms folded, looking smug. When Rowe walked in, the entire room shifted. Even the investigators straightened. Because Elias Rowe wasn't just a name, he was a presence, a force, the kind of operator whose reputation preceded him by miles. The lead investigator cleared his throat. Commander Rowe, what brings you? Save it. Rowe's voice was calm, cold. You've been building a case against my operator based on fabricated evidence, and I'm here to dismantle it. He picked up the diagrams, studied them, then tossed them back on the table. This isn't Vance's handwriting. It's a crude imitation of mine. Whoever made these wanted you to think she was involved. But they didn't do their homework. He pulled a tablet from his coat, tapped the screen, and projected an image onto the wall. It was a side-by-side comparison. The diagrams from the safe house. And Ro's original notes, archived, authenticated, dated years before Mara had even joined the teams. The line weights wrong. The notation style's wrong. This was made by someone who's seen my work but never done it. The investigators shifted uncomfortably. Ro kept going. You've been chasing the wrong target. Someone inside this unit has been using Vance's expertise as camouflage. Someone who knew she'd be the perfect scapegoat. Eyes shifted. Realization dawned, and all of them landed on Cross. Cross stiffened. That's insane. Ro turned to face him. Is it? Because you're the one who's been pushing hardest to discredit her. You're the one who's had access to her personal files. You're the one who... An alarm blared. Red lights flashed. Radios crackled. A voice cut through the chaos. All units, code red. Active threat at Ceremonial Plaza. High-value target confirmed. Pike grabbed his radio. What's the situation? Possible assassination attempt. Repeat, possible assassination. The transmission cut to static. Ro and Pike locked eyes. And Mara understood immediately. The real plan was still in motion, and they were out of time. The plaza was 2 clicks north, a wide, open courtyard built for state ceremonies and public gatherings. Tonight, it was hosting a diplomatic reception. Foreign dignitaries, military brass, press cameras, the kind of event where a single bullet could rewrite history. And someone was planning to fire that bullet. Pike's voice cut through the chaos, sharp and commanding. Atlas, gear up! We move in 3! Operators scrambled, grabbing weapons, checking magazines, snapping comms into place. The safe house transformed from interrogation room to staging area in seconds. But Mara stood frozen, watching them move, knowing she wasn't part of it anymore. She had no weapon, no badge, no authority. She was a suspect, not a soldier. Ro stepped beside her, voice low. You know what this is, don't you? Mara nodded slowly. Submerged firing position, same MO as the canal. They're using water features at the plaza, fountains, reflecting pools. That's where the shooter will be. And the spotter. Mara's eyes drifted to Cross, who was barking orders, moving with the confidence of someone who knew exactly how this would play out. Already in position? Ro's jaw tightened. He turned to Pike. Lieutenant, you need to split your team. Send half to the plaza's perimeter. Send the other half to secure the water features. Pike paused, hand on his rifle. Commander, with all due respect, you're retired. This is my operation. And it's your operation that's been compromised. Ro's voice didn't rise, but the weight behind it could have crushed stone. Cross has been feeding intel to whoever's running this. He's the inside man, and if you take him with you to that plaza, you're walking into a trap. Cross spun around, face flushed red. That's bullshit. I've bled for this team. I've saved lives. You've covered your tracks, Ro interrupted, but not well enough. The timing of the accusations against Vance, the planted evidence, the fact that you were the first to dismiss her observation at the canal, even though she was right. He stepped closer to Cross, voice dropping to something cold and lethal. You didn't want her looking at the water because you knew what she'd see. Cross's hand drifted toward his sidearm. Ro didn't move. Go ahead. Prove me right. Pike stepped between them, hand raised. Enough! Both of you stand down. He looked at Ro, then at Cross, weighing options he didn't have time to weigh. Cross, you're staying here. Ro, you're with me. Vance? She's coming too, Ro said. Pike's eyes narrowed. She's under investigation. She's the only one who knows how this technique works. You want to stop this? You need her. The room fell silent. Every operator was staring now, at Pike, at Ro, at Mara standing unarmed and alone against the wall. Pike exhaled, frustration and calculation warring across his face. Then he made a choice. He pulled his sidearm and handed it to Mara. You're reinstated, temporarily. Screw this up and I'll bury you myself. Mara took the weapon, checked the chamber, nodded once. Understood, sir. Cross's face twisted with rage. You're making a mistake, Lieutenant. Pike didn't look at him. Secure Cross. Keep him here under guard until we get back. Two junior operators moved in, hands on their weapons. Cross didn't resist, but the look he gave Mara could have split steel. Mara met his eyes and said nothing, because there was nothing left to say. They moved fast, 2 vehicles, 8 operators, comms locked down tight. Pike drove the lead Humvee with Rowe riding shotgun. Mara sat in the back with 3 other Atlas members, Petty Officer Jamie Kess, a soft-spoken breacher with a Tennessee drawl, Specialist Marcus Cole, a wiry combat medic who chewed gum like his life depended on it, and Sergeant First Class Diana Trent, a sniper whose kill count was classified and terrifying. No one spoke. The city blurred past, cramped streets, flickering streetlights, late-night pedestrians scattering as the convoy roared through intersections. Mara's pulse was steady, hands calm, but her mind was racing. She ran the variables. Plaza layout, water features, sight lines, depth, current. The shooter would need concealment, oxygen, and a clear shot at the podium. That meant the reflecting pool, shallow enough for a rebreather rig, positioned with direct line of sight to the stage. But the spotter would be somewhere high, close enough to coordinate, far enough to escape. Cross would have known all of this, would have planned it, would have ensured the timing was perfect, and now he was locked in a room, probably already signaling his extraction team. Kess leaned over, voice low. Hey, Vance, you good? Mara glanced at him. Yeah. You don't look good. I'm fine. Cole popped his gum. She's fine, Kess. Leave her alone. Trent didn't look up from her rifle scope. She's thinking. Let her think. Mara's lips twitched. Not quite a smile, but close. These weren't her usual teammates. She'd trained with them, run drills, shared bad coffee and freezing hides, but they'd never worked a live op together, never bled together, and now they were trusting her with their lives. Kess tapped her shoulder. For what it's worth, I believed you back there. Cross has always been a prick. But you don't strike me as the lying type. Mara looked at him, really looked, saw the sincerity in his face, the kind of trust that didn't come easy in this line of work. She nodded. Thanks. Don't mention it, just don't get me killed. I'll do my best. The plaza came into view, an expanse of white stone lit by floodlights, surrounded by neoclassical buildings with columns and arched windows. A stage had been erected at the northern end, draped in flags and banners. Dignitaries mingled near the podium. Security teams circled the perimeter, earpieces in, eyes scanning, but none of them were looking at the water. Pike's voice crackled over the radio. Atlas, we're approaching from the south. Trent, find elevation and get eyes on that reflecting pool. Kess, Cole, Vance, you're with me. We're going in on foot. Rowe's voice cut in. I'll take the west side. If Cross has a backup plan, it'll come from there. Pike hesitated. You sure you're up for this, Commander? Rowe smiled, grim, sharp. I taught half these bastards how to shoot. I think I can manage. The vehicles stopped 2 blocks out. Operators dismounted, weapons low, moving in pairs through the shadows. Mara followed Pike, sidearm drawn, eyes locked on the plaza ahead. The reflecting pool stretched across the courtyard like a sheet of black glass. 60 feet long, shallow, motionless. Underwater lights glowed faintly, casting ripples across the stone. And there, just beneath the surface, Mara saw it again. Micro-disturbances. Controlled movement. Something human-shaped, drifting slowly toward the stage. Her breath caught. Pike saw her expression. You got something? Mara pointed. There, 30 feet from the podium, submerged, moving slow. Pike raised his rifle, peering through his optic. I don't see... You won't, not unless you know what to look for. Trent's voice came over the radio, calm and clinical. Atlas Actual, I've got visual from the rooftop, confirming movement in the pool, single target. Looks like a rebreather rig. Pike keyed his comms. Security teams, this is Atlas Actual. We have a confirmed threat in the reflecting pool. Evacuate the stage, now. Static, confusion. Then a different voice, Plaza Security tight with panic. Say again? Threat in the pool? Just do it, sirens wailed. Lights flashed. The crowd erupted into chaos. Dignitaries stumbling, security rushing the stage, press cameras swinging wildly. And in the pool, the shape stopped moving. Mara's pulse spiked. He knows we're here. Pike swore. Can you take the shot? Not with a sidearm, not through water. Trent's voice crackled. I've got the angle. Give me the word. Wait! Mara's mind raced. If you shoot him now, we lose the spotter. We lose the network. We need him alive. Pike stared at her. You want to capture a submerged sniper? I want to stop this before it happens again. Vance, we don't have time. Mara was already moving. She sprinted toward the pool, yanking off her gear vest, dropping her sidearm, kicking off her boots. Pike shouted after her, but she didn't stop. She hit the water hard. Cold slammed into her like a fist. The world became muffled, distorted, weightless. Mara kicked down, eyes burning, lungs already screaming for air. The pool was deeper than it looked, 12 feet, maybe more. The underwater lights cast eerie shadows across the tiled bottom. And there, 20 feet ahead, she saw him. The shooter hung suspended in the water, rebreather mask covering his face, wet suit black as oil. His rifle was mounted on a stabilized rig, some kind of pneumatic firing system designed for underwater discharge. He was aiming at the stage, finger on the trigger, waiting for the perfect moment. He didn't see Mara coming. She surged forward, closing the distance in 3 powerful strokes. Her hand shot out, grabbing the barrel of his rifle and wrenching it sideways. The shooter twisted, eyes wide behind his mask, and slammed an elbow into her ribs. Pain exploded through her chest. Air bubbles escaped her mouth. She locked her legs around his torso, dragging him down, away from the surface, away from his shot. He fought, strong, trained, desperate. His fist connected with her jaw. Stars burst across her vision, but Mara didn't let go. She hooked her arm around his neck, pulled his rebreather free, and watched his eyes go wide with panic. Humans could hold their breath for minutes if they trained, but panic made you burn oxygen faster. Mara counted 10 seconds, 15, 20. The shooter's movements became frantic, wild. He clawed at her arms, thrashed against her grip, tried to kick free, and then his body went limp. Mara hauled him toward the surface, lungs burning, vision narrowing. She broke through with a gasp, dragging the unconscious shooter with her. Hands grabbed her, Kess and Cole, pulling both of them out of the pool. Mara collapsed onto the stone, coughing water, ribs screaming. Cole was already zip-tying the shooter, checking vitals, shouting for a medic. Pike crouched beside her. You insane! Mara coughed again, grinning through the pain. Worked, didn't it? Pike shook his head, almost smiling. Yeah, it did. Trent's voice crackled over the radio. Atlas Actual, I've got eyes on a second target. West balcony, 3rd floor. He's moving. Roe's voice cut in, sharp. I'm on him. Nep. Roe moved through the plaza's western corridor like smoke. Silent, purposeful, lethal. His sidearm was drawn, held low and ready. He'd seen the balcony Trent mentioned, an observation post with clear sight lines to both the pool and the stage. The perfect spotter position. He climbed the stairwell, boots soft on marble, breathing controlled. Voices echoed from above, frantic, urgent. Roe reached the 3rd floor and saw him. A man in civilian clothes standing near the balcony rail, radio in hand, eyes locked on the chaos below. He was young, mid-20s, clean-cut, the kind of face that disappeared in a crowd. But Roe recognized the posture, the calm, the detachment, trained operator. The man turned, saw Roe, and smiled. Commander Roe, didn't think you'd make it. Roe didn't lower his weapon. You work for Cross? Work with, there's a difference. Not anymore. The man's smile faded. You think you've won? You think stopping one shooter changes anything? He gestured toward the plaza. This is bigger than you, bigger than your team. We're restructuring the board. And people like you, people who cling to old codes and outdated loyalty, you're in the way. Roe's voice stayed calm. What's your name? The man hesitated. Why? Because I want to know who I'm arresting. You're not arresting anyone. He moved, fast, trained, deadly. His hand snapped toward a concealed pistol. Roe fired first. The shot echoed across the plaza, a single, clean crack. The man stumbled, clutching his shoulder, weapon clattering to the floor. Rowe kicked it away and pressed his boot against the man's chest. "Stay down!" The man laughed, bitter, pained. "You're too late. Cross is already gone. And the people he works for? They'll replace him, replace me, replace all of us." He coughed, blood flecking his lips. "You can't stop what's coming." Rowe leaned closer. "Maybe not, but I can stop you." He zip-tied the man's wrists, called it in, and watched as security teams swarmed the balcony. Back at the plaza, medics were loading the captured shooter into an ambulance. Mara sat on the edge of the reflecting pool, wrapped in a thermal blanket, ribs taped, breathing shallow. Kess handed her a bottle of water. "You know you're crazy, right?" Mara took a sip. "I've been told." Cole grinned. "Good crazy, though. The kind that saves lives." Trent walked over, rifle slung across her back. She didn't say anything, just nodded once. Respect. Recognition. Mara nodded back. Pike approached, radio in hand, face grim. "Cross is gone." The guards found his room empty. Window broken. He rappelled out and disappeared. Mara's jaw tightened. "He'll run to whoever's funding this operation. We'll find him." "Will you?" Pike met her eyes. "Yeah, we will, because now we know what we're looking for." Rowe walked up, shoulder bleeding slightly, but his expression was calm. "Spotter's in custody. He's talking. Names, locations, funding trails. Cross isn't the top of the food chain, but he's close." Mara stood slowly, wincing. "So what now?" Rowe looked at her, really looked. The way he used to when she was a recruit, uncertain and untested. "Now you stop apologizing for being good at what you do." Mara blinked. "I wasn't?" "Yeah, you were." Rowe's voice softened. "You've spent your entire career trying to fit in, trying not to stand out, trying to be just good enough that people don't notice you." He stepped closer. "But you're better than that. And the people who matter, they see it." Mara's throat tightened. She didn't trust herself to speak. Rowe smiled, just a little. "You saved lives tonight, Vance. Own it." He walked away, leaving Mara standing alone by the pool, staring at her reflection in the dark water. The drive back to the safe house was quiet. Mara sat in the same seat, same people around her, but everything felt different. Kess was asleep, head against the window. Cole was texting someone, probably his wife. Trent was cleaning her rifle, methodical and calm. And Mara was thinking about Cross, about the network he was part of, about the people who'd trained him, funded him, weaponized him, about how close they'd come to losing everything. Pike's voice broke the silence. "Vance?" She looked up. "Sir?" "You did good tonight." Mara hesitated. "Thank you, sir. But you're not off the hook. The investigation's still open. You'll need to give a full debrief, answer questions, prove you're not connected." "I understand." Pike glanced at her in the rearview mirror. "For what it's worth, I don't think you are. Connected, I mean." Mara met his eyes. "Then why keep the investigation open?" "Because I need to prove it. To command. To the team. To everyone who's going to ask why I let a suspect back into the field." He paused. "And because if I'm wrong, if there's even a chance I'm wrong, I need to know." Mara nodded slowly. "Fair enough. But I don't think I'm wrong." She almost smiled. "Me neither, sir." Otto. They arrived at the safe house just before dawn. The sky was turning gray, the stars fading. Mara climbed out of the Humvee, body aching, mind exhausted. Rowe was waiting by the entrance, hands in his pockets, looking out at the hills. Mara walked over. "You didn't have to stay." "I know." "So why did you?" Rowe turned to face her. "Because I trained you to be better than this. Better than doubts and accusations and people who can't see past their own insecurities." He paused. "And because I wanted to make sure you remembered that." Mara's chest tightened. "I never forgot." "Good." They stood in silence for a moment, watching the sunrise paint the hills gold. Then Rowe spoke again, voice quieter now. "You're going to face more nights like this, Vance. More people who don't believe you. More situations where you'll have to prove yourself over and over again. I know. And you're going to be tempted to quit, to walk away, to find something easier. Mara looked at him. Are you saying I should? Ro smiled. I'm saying you won't, because you're not built that way. He clapped her shoulder once, then walked toward his truck. Mara watched him go, feeling something settle inside her, something solid and unshakable. She wasn't done. Not even close. Inside the safe house, the team was regrouping. Gear stowed, weapons cleaned, coffee brewing. Pike was on the phone with command, voice low and clipped. Trent was reviewing footage from her scope. Kess and Cole were trading stories, laughter breaking through the tension. Mara sat alone in the corner, hands wrapped around a mug of coffee, staring at the wall. Her mind kept circling back to Cross, to the way he'd looked at her, the way he'd smiled when she was disarmed. He'd wanted her to fail. Not just fail, disappear. And he'd almost succeeded. Kess walked over, dropping into the chair beside her. You okay? Mara nodded. Yeah. You don't look okay. I'm just thinking. About what? Mara hesitated, then decided honesty was easier than evasion. About how close we came to losing. Kess leaned back, exhaling slowly. Yeah. I've been thinking about that too. And? And I'm glad you were there. Because if you hadn't been, if you'd stayed locked in that room, he shook his head. We'd be scraping bodies off that plaza right now. Mara looked at him. You really believe that? I really do. She took a sip of coffee, letting the warmth settle in her chest. Thanks, Kess. Any time, Vance. He stood, stretched, and walked back toward the group. And Mara sat there, alone, but not lonely, thinking about what came next. Because Cross was still out there. The network was still operational. And the people pulling the strings? They weren't done. Not by a long shot. Pike ended his call and walked over, face unreadable. Command wants a full briefing tomorrow. You, me, Ro, and whoever else was on site tonight. Mara set down her coffee. What are they saying? They're saying we got lucky. They're saying the investigation into you is still active. They're saying, he paused, jaw tight. They're saying if we can't prove you're clean, they'll bury you to protect the unit's reputation. Mara's stomach dropped. Even after tonight? Especially after tonight, because now you're a liability with a spotlight on you. She stood slowly, fists clenched. So what do I do? Pike met her eyes. You keep your head down. You cooperate. You let Ro and me handle the politics. And if that's not enough, then you fight. Mara held his gaze. I'm not running, sir. I know. And I'm not going down without a fight. Pike almost smiled. I know that too. He walked away, leaving Mara standing alone in the flickering light. She looked around the room, at the operators who'd fought beside her, trusted her, bled with her, and she made a decision. She wasn't going to wait for the investigation to clear her. She was going to find Cross herself. She was going to dismantle the network, and she was going to prove, once and for all, that she wasn't the threat. They were. Mara didn't sleep that night. She sat in the corner of the safe house, laptop balanced on her knees, fingers flying across the keyboard. The rest of Atlas had crashed, sprawled across cots and chairs, weapons within reach, breathing deep and steady. But Mara's mind was racing too fast for rest. She was hunting. Cross had disappeared, but he'd left traces. Digital breadcrumbs scattered across encrypted channels, burner accounts, and dark web forums. Most operators would have missed them. But Mara had spent 3 years under Ro's tutelage learning how networks operated. Not just tactical networks, but informational ones. How money moved. How orders flowed. How people like Cross stayed hidden while pulling strings. She found the first thread buried in an archived email server. A single message, coded, sent 4 hours before the Plaza attack. The syntax was military. The routing was foreign. And the signature at the bottom was a call sign she recognized. Nomad 7. Cross's operational handle. Mara's pulse quickened. She cracked the encryption, basic substitution cipher, arrogant in its simplicity, and read the message. Package delivered. Spotter in position. Fall back to Site Obsidian if compromised. Site Obsidian. Mara pulled up a map, cross-referencing every safe house, supply depot, and black site facility within a 100-click radius. Nothing matched. She widened the search. Still nothing. Then she stopped searching geographically and started searching linguistically. Obsidian, black glass, volcanic, formed under pressure. Her fingers paused over the keyboard. There was an old mining complex 30 clicks west, abandoned, off-grid, built into the side of a dormant volcanic ridge. Local intel had flagged it months ago as a possible smuggling route, but Atlas had never prioritized it. Too remote, too unstable, too perfect. Mara saved the coordinates, closed the laptop, and stood. Pike was awake, sitting near the window with a cup of coffee and a 1,000-yard stare. He glanced at her. "You should be sleeping." "I found him." Pike straightened. "Cross?" "His fallback site, an old mining complex. He's there. Or he will be." "How do you know?" Mara handed him the laptop. Pike scanned the message, the coordinates, the analysis. His jaw tightened. "This is solid work, Vance." "Thank you, sir. But it's also not your job. You're still under investigation. You should be keeping your head down, not running solo ops." Mara met his eyes. "With all due respect, sir, if I keep my head down, Cross wins. The network wins. And the next attack happens somewhere else, to someone else, and we're back to square one." Pike stared at her for a long moment. Then he set down his coffee. "You're not going alone." "I wasn't planning to." "Good." He stood, moving toward the sleeping operators. "Atlas up! We've got a lead." The room erupted into motion. Gear grabbed, weapons checked, boots laced. Within 90 seconds, the entire team was ready. Kess yawned, stretching his neck. "What's the target?" "Mining complex, 30 clicks west. Possible location for Chief Cross and his network." Trent raised an eyebrow. "Possible?" "Probable," Mara corrected. "He sent a coded fallback message 4 hours before the plaza attack. The timing matches. The location matches. It's him." Cole popped his gum. "And if it's not? Then we waste a night, but if it is, and we don't move, we lose him for good." Pike looked around the room. "Vote, go or no go." Hands went up, all of them. Pike nodded. "Gear up. We roll in 10. The convoy moved through the pre-dawn darkness. 2 Humvees, headlights off, navigating by GPS and instinct. Mara rode in the lead vehicle again, but this time she wasn't sitting in the back. She was up front with Pike, maps spread across her lap, calling out terrain features and potential ambush points. Pike drove in silence, eyes locked on the road. Then, quietly, "You've done this before." Mara glanced at him. "Sir?" "Tracking. Analysis. Network mapping. This isn't basic SEAL training. This is intelligence work." Mara hesitated. Commander Rowe believed in cross-discipline training. He thought operators who only knew how to shoot would eventually become obsolete. "And you believed him?" "I still do." Pike nodded slowly. Cross never understood that. He thought being the loudest, the strongest, the most aggressive made you the best. "But you?" He glanced at her. "You think before you act, and that scares people like him." "Because thinking makes you unpredictable." "Exactly." They drove in silence for another mile. Then Pike spoke again. "If we find Cross tonight, I need you to stay sharp. He's going to play mind games, try to turn the team against you, make you doubt yourself." Mara's jaw tightened. "I'm ready." "Are you?" She looked at him. "I've been doubted my entire career, sir. One more voice won't break me." Pike almost smiled. "Good." Bastam. The mining complex rose out of the ridge like a scar, jagged, industrial, half-collapsed. Rusted equipment littered the grounds. Conveyor belts hung at broken angles. The main entrance was a massive tunnel, dark and gaping, leading deep into the mountain. Pike stopped the convoy a click out, and the team dismounted in silence. No lights, no comms chatter, just hand signals and controlled breathing. Trent moved to high ground, setting up her rifle on a rocky outcrop with clear sightlines to the entrance. Kess and Cole took point, moving low and fast, checking for tripwires and sensors. Mara stayed with Pike, scanning the terrain through her optic. The place felt wrong, too quiet, too empty. Pike keyed his radio. Trent, you got eyes inside? Negative. Entrance is dark, no movement, no heat signatures. Could be shielded, Mara murmured. Pike nodded. Or abandoned. Only one way to find out. They advanced slowly, weapons up, every shadow a potential threat. The tunnel entrance loomed closer, a mouth of blackness that swallowed light. Mara's pulse was steady, but her instincts screamed caution. Kess reached the entrance first. He paused, hand raised, then signaled clear. The team stacked up, Pike, Mara, Cole, Kess, and moved inside. The tunnel was vast, carved through volcanic rock, lined with rusted rails and abandoned carts. The air smelled like metal in decay. Their footsteps echoed, too loud, impossible to silence. Mara's eyes adjusted slowly. She saw side passages branching off, storage rooms filled with rotting equipment, shafts dropping into darkness. And then she saw the light, faint, flickering, deep inside the complex. Pike saw it too. He signaled the team to halt, then gestured Mara forward. She moved carefully, stepping over debris, rifle shouldered, eyes locked on the light source. It was coming from a room at the end of the tunnel, a makeshift operations center. Laptops, radios, maps pinned to the walls, and sitting in the center, calm as death, was Chief Nolan Cross. He looked up and smiled. Took you long enough. Mara's finger tightened on the trigger, but Pike's hand shot out, stopping her. Cross stood slowly, hands visible, unarmed. Easy, Lieutenant. I'm not here to fight. Then why are you here? Pike's voice was ice. To finish what we started. We? Cross gestured around the room. The people I work for. The people who understand that the world's changing faster than outdated institutions can handle. We're not the enemy, Pike. We're the solution. You killed civilians. Collateral damage, acceptable losses. You know how this works. Pike's jaw tightened. No, I know how you work. And it ends tonight. Cross laughed. Sharp, bitter. You think arresting me changes anything? You think I'm the head of this operation? He stepped closer, eyes locked on Mara. She knows. Don't you, Vance? Mara didn't respond. Cross's smile widened. You've been quiet. That's smart, because you know if you open your mouth, you'll have to explain how you recognized a technique that's supposed to be buried, how you knew exactly where to look, how you think like one of us. I'm nothing like you, Mara said quietly. Aren't you? We were both trained by Roe, both taught to see the battlefield differently, both shaped into weapons. He tilted his head. The only difference is I accepted what I am. You're still pretending to be something else. Pike stepped between them. Enough. Cross, you're under arrest. You have the right to... An explosion rocked the tunnel. The ceiling cracked. Dust and debris rained down. The lights flickered and died. And in the darkness, Cross's voice echoed. You walked right into it. Chaos erupted. The tunnel shook again. Secondary charges, strategically placed, collapsing the entrance. Mara grabbed Pike's arm, pulling him toward a side passage as the main corridor caved in. Move! Move! Kess and Cole were already running, flashlights cutting through the dust. Trent's voice crackled over the radio, frantic. Atlas Actual, the entrance is gone. Repeat, primary exit is blocked. Pike coughed, wiping dust from his eyes. Trent, find another way in. We're trapped. Copy. Mara's mind raced. Cross had planned this, lured them in, used himself as bait, and now they were buried under a mountain with no way out. She scanned the passage they'd retreated into, narrow, sloping downward, walls slick with moisture. She could hear water, distant, echoing, an underground river. Sir, she said. There's water ahead. Pike looked at her. How do you know? I can hear it, and the air's humid. There's a source. And you think that's our way out? I think it's our only option. Pike hesitated, weighing impossible choices. Then he nodded. Lead the way. They moved deeper into the complex, following the sound of rushing water. The passage narrowed, forcing them into single file. Mara led, flashlight in one hand, sidearm in the other, every nerve screaming danger. Behind her, Kess muttered, This is insane. Cole agreed. Completely insane. Shut up, Pike snapped, and keep moving. The passage opened into a cavern, massive, cathedral-like, filled with the roar of water. An underground river cut through the center, fast and black and deadly. On the far side, a natural tunnel led upward toward daylight, their only escape. But between them and that tunnel was 60 feet of freezing water and a current strong enough to snap bones. Pike stared at it, jaw tight. We'll never make it across. Mara was already stripping off her gear. You won't. I will. Vance, I've done this before, sir. Underwater navigation, current management. It's what Roe trained me for. That was training. This is survival. Mara met his eyes. And if I don't get across, we all die in here. Pike's fists clenched. Then, slowly, he nodded. Do it. Mara handed him her weapon, her radio, everything except her knife. She stood at the edge of the river, breathing slow and deep, centering herself. Then she dove. Hoot. The cold hit like a sledgehammer. The current grabbed her, dragging her downstream, slamming her against submerged rocks. Mara kicked hard, angling across, using the flow instead of fighting it. Her lungs burned, her vision blurred, but she didn't panic. She counted strokes, adjusted angles, trusted her training, and when her hand finally slapped against stone on the far side, she pulled herself up, gasping, shivering, alive. Pike's voice echoed across the cavern. Vance, you good? She gave a thumbs up, too exhausted to shout. Then she looked at the tunnel ahead, steep, narrow, barely wide enough for one person. She climbed, muscles screaming, hands raw, until she reached the top. Daylight. She was outside. She keyed the radio Pike had left with her. Atlas Actual, I'm topside. I'm going to find a rope, a winch, something. Hang tight. Pike's voice crackled back. Copy. Be fast. Mara scanned the area, rocky, barren, no equipment in sight. But there was an old mining rig 100 meters away, rusted but intact. She sprinted toward it, legs shaking, and found what she needed. Cable, winch, harness. She hauled it back, anchored it, and lowered the line into the cavern. One by one, she pulled them up. Kess first, then Cole, then Pike. When they were all topside, soaked and exhausted, Pike looked at her. You just saved our lives. Mara was too tired to respond. She just nodded. Well, but they weren't safe yet. Cross was still out there, and he wasn't alone. Trent's voice crackled over the radio. Atlas Actual, I've got movement. Multiple hostiles armed, converging on your position. Pike swore. How many? At least 6. Maybe more. ETA? 3 minutes. Mara grabbed her weapon from Pike, checked the magazine, and stood. We need to move. Where? Anywhere but here. They ran, across the ridge, through scattered rocks, toward a cluster of abandoned structures. The terrain was brutal, every step a fight against exhaustion, but they didn't stop. Gunfire erupted behind them. Bullets snapped past, ricocheting off stone. Trent's voice cut through. I've got you covered. Keep moving. Her rifle cracked. Once, twice, 3 times. Bodies dropped. But more were coming. Pike led them into a half-collapsed building, taking cover behind rusted machinery. Mara positioned herself near a broken window, rifle up, scanning for targets. And then she saw him. Cross. Moving through the rocks with 5 armed operatives, tactical gear, professional movements. He wasn't running. He was hunting. Pike saw him too. He brought backup. More than backup, Mara muttered. That's a kill team. Can we take them? Mara counted rounds, calculated angles, assessed terrain. Maybe. If Trent keeps them suppressed and we hold this position. And if we can't? Mara looked at him. Then we die here. Pike almost smiled. Not today. He keyed his radio. Trent, light them up. Trent's rifle sang. 3 operatives dropped before they even knew where the shots came from. Cross dove for cover, shouting orders, coordinating his team with brutal efficiency. Return fire hammered the building. Bullets punched through rusted metal, shattered glass, kicked up dust. Mara fired back. Controlled bursts, precision shots, every round counting. Kess and Cole flanked left, using the terrain for cover, laying down suppressive fire. Pike moved right, drawing attention, creating chaos. And Mara stayed center, calm and lethal. She saw one operative moving to flank Trent's position. She fired. He dropped. She saw another preparing a grenade. She fired. The grenade detonated in his hand. She saw Cross, 15 meters out behind a boulder, radio in hand, and she made a choice. She left cover. Pike shouted, "Vance, no!" But Mara was already running, low, fast, zigzagging through gunfire. She closed the distance, rifle up, finger on the trigger. Cross saw her coming. He dropped the radio and drew his sidearm. They fired simultaneously. Mara's round caught him in the shoulder, spinning him sideways. His round grazed her thigh, tearing fabric and skin. She didn't stop. She slammed into him, driving him to the ground, pinning his weapon arm with her knee. He struggled, strong, trained, desperate, but Mara pressed her rifle barrel against his throat. "Don't move." Cross stared up at her, eyes wide, breathing ragged. "You won't kill me." "No," Mara said quietly, "but I'll make sure you never hurt anyone again." She zip-tied his wrists, hauled him to his feet, and dragged him back toward the building. The remaining operatives scattered. Trent picked them off one by one. And then, finally, silence. Pike limped over, bleeding from a dozen cuts, looking like he'd been through a war. "You good?" Mara nodded, wincing. "I've been better. You just tackled a kill team leader in the middle of a firefight." "Seemed like the right call." Pike laughed, short, exhausted, genuine. "You're insane, Vance. I've been told." He looked at Cross, cuffed and bleeding. "We got him?" "Yeah," Mara said. "We did." But Cross was smiling. Even now, beaten and broken, he was smiling. "You think this ends anything?" he said. "You think arresting me stops the network, stops the people funding us, stops the movement?" Mara crouched beside him. "No, but it stops you. And that's enough for today." Cross's smile faded. Mara stood, turned away, and walked toward the rest of the team, because she wasn't interested in his philosophy, his justifications, his grand vision. She was interested in justice, and justice had just been served. The extraction team arrived an hour later. Helicopters, medics, command personnel. Cross was loaded into custody, still smiling, still defiant. The bodies were recovered. The evidence was secured. And Mara sat on a rock, leg bandaged, watching the sun rise over the mountains. Rowe walked over, hands in his pockets. "Hell of a night." Mara looked up. "You could say that." "How you holding up?" "Tired, sore, alive." Rowe nodded. "That's a good combination." He sat beside her, silent for a long moment. Then, "You proved them all wrong tonight." "Did I?" "You know you did." Mara exhaled slowly. "It doesn't feel like winning." "It never does. Not when the fight costs this much." He paused. "But you did what needed to be done. And you did it without compromising who you are." Mara looked at him. "And who am I?" Rowe smiled. "Someone who doesn't quit. Someone who sees the truth even when everyone else is blind. Someone who saves lives, not because it's easy, but because it's right." Mara's throat tightened. She didn't trust herself to speak. Rowe stood, clapped her shoulder once, and walked away. And Mara sat there watching the sunrise, feeling something settle inside her. She'd been underestimated, doubted, accused, but she'd survived, and that was enough. The debriefing room was sterile. White walls, fluorescent lights, a metal table bolted to the floor. No windows, no warmth, just the kind of place where careers ended and reputations died. Mara sat on one side of the table, hands folded, posture straight despite the exhaustion pressing down on her like a weight. Her leg throbbed where Cross's bullet had grazed her. Her ribs ached from the underwater fight. But her eyes were clear, steady, unflinching. Across from her sat three people who would decide her fate. Captain Rebecca Frost, mid-40s, iron-gray hair, eyes like a surgeon's scalpel. She ran special operations oversight for the entire region and had zero tolerance for chaos in her command structure. Commander James Halsey, older, grizzled, decorated, the kind of officer who'd seen every war since the Cold Ones and trusted experience over innovation. And sitting at the end of the table, arms crossed, expression unreadable, Commander Elias Rowe. Pike stood against the wall behind Mara, technically an observer, but clearly her advocate. He'd already given his statement. Now it was her turn. Frost opened a folder, scanned the contents, then looked up. Petty Officer Vance, let's start with the simple question. Did you, at any point during your service, provide classified tactical information to foreign nationals or non-sanctioned operatives? No, ma'am. Did you create or distribute diagrams detailing submerged sniper techniques to individuals outside your chain of command? No, ma'am. Did you knowingly associate with Chief Nolan Cross in any capacity beyond standard operational duties? No, ma'am. Frost's eyes narrowed. Then explain how you recognized a technique that's classified above your clearance level. Explain how you knew exactly where to look when trained operators with years more experience saw nothing. Mara didn't hesitate. I was trained by Commander Rowe in unconventional tactics, including water-based concealment and firing techniques. That training was conducted under proper authorization 7 years ago when I was part of an experimental unit he supervised. Halsey leaned forward. That unit was disbanded. Records were sealed. Why didn't you disclose this training when you joined Atlas? Because I was never asked, sir. My personnel file lists my training history. It's all there. No one flagged it as relevant until 2 nights ago. Convenient, Frost muttered. Rowe spoke for the first time, voice calm but edged with steel. Captain, Petty Officer Vance's training records are complete and accurate. I personally ensured they were filed properly when the unit dissolved. If Atlas leadership failed to review them, that's a command oversight issue, not an operator problem. Frost shot him a look. With all due respect, Commander, you're not objective here. You trained her. You have a vested interest in protecting her reputation. I have a vested interest in the truth. And the truth is that Vance performed exactly as I trained her to, identifying threats others missed, adapting under pressure, and saving lives in the process. Halsey tapped the folder. What about the diagrams found at the safe house, the ones linking her to the assassination network? Mara spoke before Rowe could. Those diagrams weren't mine. The handwriting was a poor imitation designed to implicate me. Commander Rowe already provided forensic analysis proving they were fabricated. By who? Chief Cross, or someone working with him. Frost leaned back, fingers steepled. So you're saying a decorated senior enlisted operator, someone with 15 years of exemplary service, framed you, a rookie. Why? Mara met her eyes. Because I saw something he didn't want anyone to see. Because I asked questions when he wanted silence. Because I was trained in techniques he was exploiting, and my presence threatened his operation. That's speculation. It's also the truth, ma'am. Silence filled the room, heavy, suffocating. Halsey broke it. Let's talk about the mining complex. You pursued Cross without authorization. You led a team into a trap. You engaged in a firefight that resulted in multiple casualties. Pike stepped forward. Sir, with all due respect, Vance's intelligence was solid. Without her analysis, we wouldn't have located Cross at all. And during the engagement, she saved every member of that team, including me. Frost didn't look at Pike. Lieutenant, your judgment is also under review. You reinstated an operator under active investigation and brought her into a combat situation. That's a violation of protocol. Pike's jaw tightened. It was the right call. That's not for you to decide. Then who decides? The bureaucrats who weren't there? The investigators building cases from behind desks? Pike's voice rose, controlled but fierce. Vance earned her place on that team. She earned it with blood and skill and courage. And if you can't see that, then this entire review process is a waste of time. Frost stood. Lieutenant, stand down. No, ma'am. I won't. Pike moved closer to the table. You want to bury her because she's inconvenient, because she doesn't fit the narrative you're comfortable with. But the reality is that she's one of the best operators I've ever worked with. And if you discharge her, you're making the teams weaker, not stronger. The room crackled with tension. Halsey looked like he wanted to intervene, but couldn't find the words. Frost's face was stone, and Mara sat perfectly still, watching, saying nothing. Because this wasn't her fight anymore. This was Pike's, and Rowe's, and everyone else who'd seen her work and believed in it. She'd done her part. Now it was up to them. Bam. Frost sat back down slowly. Commander Rowe, you've been quiet. Rowe tilted his head. I was waiting for you to finish. Finish what? Deciding whether you care more about regulations or results. Frost's eyes flashed. That's out of line. Is it? Because from where I'm sitting, you've got an operator who stopped 2 assassination attempts, captured a compromised senior chief, and dismantled a network that's been operating under your watch for months. And instead of commending her, you're interrogating her. He leaned forward. So I'll ask again. Do you care about regulations or results? Halsey cleared his throat. Commander, we all want the same thing here. Do we? Because it seems like you want a scapegoat. Someone to blame for the fact that Cross slipped through your vetting process. Someone to explain away the embarrassment of an insider threat. Rose's voice was quiet now, dangerous. And Vance is an easy target. Young, quiet, unconventional, the perfect sacrifice. Frost's fists clenched. You're oversimplifying. Am I? Then tell me, what evidence do you have that Vance did anything wrong? And I mean actual evidence, not speculation, not circumstantial connections, actual proof. Silence. Frost flipped through the folder again, slower this time. Her expression shifted, barely, but enough. She found nothing, because there was nothing to find. Rowe pressed the advantage. Chief Cross confessed. The spotter we captured corroborated his story. The forensic analysis cleared Vance's name. The only thing keeping this investigation open is institutional inertia and fear of admitting you were wrong. Halsey spoke carefully. Commander, even if we accept all of that, and I'm inclined to, there's still the matter of optics. Vance's actions, while effective, were highly irregular. Reinstating her without addressing those irregularities sets a dangerous precedent. Rowe stood. Then set the precedent. Tell your operators that initiative matters, that thinking independently matters, that being right matters more than being comfortable. He looked at Frost. Or don't. And watch as every talented, unconventional operator you have leaves for units that actually value them. Frost stared at him for a long time. Then she closed the folder. This review is concluded. Petty Officer Vance is cleared of all charges. The investigation is officially closed. Mara's breath caught. She kept her face neutral, but relief flooded through her. Frost continued. However, going forward, any operator utilizing non-standard tactics must file a detailed report explaining their methodology and training background. This will prevent future misunderstandings. It was a compromise, a bureaucratic shield, but it was also acceptance. Mara nodded. Understood, ma'am. Frost stood, gathering her papers. Dismissed. Outside the debriefing room, Mara leaned against the wall, eyes closed, breathing deep. Pike stood beside her, arms crossed, looking exhausted but satisfied. You okay? He asked. Mara opened her eyes. Yeah, I think so. You know what just happened in there, right? They cleared me. No, they accepted you. Pike looked at her. Frost doesn't back down. Halsey doesn't bend, but Rowe pushed them into a corner and they chose you over their pride. That doesn't happen often. Mara processed that. So what now? Now you get back to work, prove they made the right call. And if I can't? Pike almost smiled. You will. Rowe emerged from the room, looking tired but unbowed. He walked over, hands in his pockets. Well, that was fun. Mara managed a small smile. Thank you. Don't thank me. You did the work. I just made them look at it. Still, I wouldn't have made it without you. Rowe's expression softened. Yeah, you would have. Maybe not today. Maybe not this way. But you'd have made it. He paused. Because you're not someone who gives up, and that's rarer than you think. Mara's throat tightened. She looked away, composing herself. Pike clapped her shoulder. Come on. Team's waiting. They want to hear the good news. Atlas had gathered in the common room, a space barely big enough for 12 operators, filled with worn furniture and the smell of coffee. When Mara walked in, the conversation stopped. Kess stood first. Well? Mara hesitated, then, cleared, all charges dropped. The room erupted. Kess whooped. Cole punched the air. Tren allowed herself a rare smile. Even the quieter members, operators Mara barely knew, nodded approval. Pike raised his voice. Listen up. Vance is back on the roster. Full status. Anyone got a problem with that? Silence. Good, because we've got work to do. Cross gave up names before he lawyered up. We've got 3 more network cells to dismantle, and we're doing it fast, clean, and by the book. He looked around the room. Questions? None. Then gear up. We roll at 0600. The team dispersed, moving with purpose. But Kess lingered, walking over to Mara. Hey, I knew you'd make it. Mara raised an eyebrow. Did you? Okay, I hoped you'd make it. But same thing, right? She almost laughed. Sure, Kess. Same thing. He grinned and walked away. Mara stood alone in the center of the room, feeling the weight of the last 72 hours settle over her. She'd been doubted, accused, hunted, and she'd survived all of it, but the cost had been high. She thought about Cross, locked in a cell somewhere, still smiling, still convinced he'd been right. About the network he'd served, still operational, still hunting. About the operators who died because someone decided ideology mattered more than lives. And she made a promise to herself. She wouldn't let it happen again. Late that night, Mara found Rose sitting outside the barracks, staring at the stars. She walked over quietly, sat beside him. For a while, neither of them spoke. Then Rose said, "You did good, kid." Mara looked at him. "I almost didn't make it." "But you did. That's what counts." "Is it?" "Because it feels like I just got lucky. If you hadn't shown up, if Pike hadn't believed me, if any of 100 things had gone differently, but they didn't." Ro turned to face her. "You want to know the difference between good operators and great ones? Great ones don't rely on luck. They create conditions where luck can find them. You did that. You stayed sharp, stayed honest, stayed ready. And when the moment came, you didn't hesitate." Mara absorbed that. "What happens now?" "Now you keep going. Keep proving yourself. Keep saving lives." "And the network? The people Cross worked for?" Rose's expression darkened. "They're still out there, and they'll try again. Different methods, different targets, but the same goal: destabilize, divide, control. So we stop them. We try." Mara looked back at the stars. "That's not very reassuring." "It's not supposed to be. This job isn't about reassurance. It's about doing what's right even when the odds are against you." He paused. "You understand that now. Better than most." Mara nodded slowly. Rose stood, stretched. "Get some sleep, Vance. Tomorrow's going to be long." "Sir?" He looked back. "Why did you train me? 7 years ago, when I was nobody, why did you pick me?" Rose smiled. "Because I saw someone who asked questions instead of following orders blindly. Someone who thought before acting. Someone who cared more about getting it right than looking good." He paused. "Someone like me, before the system tried to grind it out of me." He walked away, leaving Mara alone under the stars. And for the first time in days, she felt something close to peace. The next morning, Atlas deployed. 3 simultaneous raids across the region, targeting network cells identified from Cross's intel. Mara was assigned to Pike's team, hitting a warehouse complex on the outskirts of the city. They moved fast and clean, breaching doors, clearing rooms, securing targets. No resistance, no casualties. The cell was dismantled in under 20 minutes. As they loaded suspects into transport vehicles, Pike pulled Mara aside. "You were solid in there." Mara shrugged. "Just doing my job, sir." "No. You were leading, calling out positions, coordinating movement. That's not just doing your job, that's excelling at it." Mara didn't know how to respond. Pike continued. "I'm recommending you for advanced leadership training, and I'm putting you up for a commendation." "Sir, that's not necessary." "It absolutely is. You saved lives, Vance, multiple times. That deserves recognition." Mara met his eyes. "Thank you, sir." Pike nodded and walked away. Kess appeared grinning. "Leadership training, huh? Look at you moving up in the world." Mara rolled her eyes. "Don't start. Too late. I'm starting. Next thing you know, you'll be running your own team, bossing me around." "I already boss you around." "Fair point." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the city wake up around them. The sun was rising, painting the buildings gold. And Mara realized something. She wasn't the same person who'd stood on that canal embankment 3 nights ago, ignored and dismissed. She'd been tested, broken down, rebuilt, and she'd come out stronger. Not because she'd proven herself to anyone else, but because she'd proven herself to herself. 2 weeks later, the formal commendation ceremony took place. Mara stood in dress uniform, uncomfortable and stiff, while a general she'd never met pinned a medal to her chest and said words about courage and dedication. The audience applauded, cameras flashed, and Mara felt nothing but the weight of expectation. Afterward, she found Ro in the crowd. He smiled. "How's it feel?" "Like a costume," Mara admitted. "Good. That means you're not doing it for the recognition." "Then why am I doing it?" "Because someone has to, and you're better at it than most." Mara looked at the medal. "What if I'm not? What if I just got lucky?" "Then you'll get lucky again, and again, until it's not luck anymore. It's skill." Mara almost smiled. "You make it sound simple." "It is simple. Not easy, but simple." Ro's expression grew serious. "The world needs people like you, Vance. People who see clearly, who act decisively, who care more about truth than comfort." He paused. "Don't let them grind that out of you." Mara nodded. "I won't." "Good." He walked away, disappearing into the crowd. And Mara stood there, alone in a room full of people, feeling more certain than she ever had. She didn't need applause. She didn't need recognition. She just needed to keep doing what was right. And that was enough. That night, back in the barracks, Mara sat on her bunk, cleaning her rifle. The team was scattered, some sleeping, some playing cards, some writing letters home. Kess walked over, dropped onto the bunk beside her. "Big day, huh?" "I guess." "You guess? You got a medal, Vance. That's not nothing." Mara set down the cleaning rod. "It feels like nothing, like it doesn't change anything. It changes how people see you." "I don't care how people see me," Kess laughed. "Yeah, I know. That's why they respect you." Mara looked at him. "What do you mean?" "You're not playing games. You're not trying to impress anyone. You just do the work, and people notice that." He paused. "Hell, I noticed that." Mara didn't know what to say. Kess stood. "Anyway, good work out there. All of it." "Thanks, Kess." He walked away, leaving Mara alone with her thoughts. She finished cleaning her rifle, reassembled it, and set it beside her bunk. Then she lay back, staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything that had happened. The canal, the accusations, the mining complex, the debriefing. All of it felt distant now, like a story that had happened to someone else. But it hadn't. It had happened to her, and she'd survived. More than survived, she'd proven herself. Not to Cross, not to Frost or Halsey or anyone else, but to herself. And that was the only proof that mattered. The next morning, Atlas received new orders. Another deployment, another mission. Mara geared up without hesitation, checking her weapon, her kit, her mind. Pike briefed the team. High-value target, urban environment, tight timeline. We go in fast, we get out faster. Questions? None. Good. Load up. As they moved toward the vehicles, Ro appeared one last time. He pulled Mara aside. "This is it, kid. You're on your own now." Mara frowned. "You're leaving?" "I was never really here, just making sure you didn't need me anymore." "And?" Rose smiled. "You don't." He walked away without another word, and Mara watched him go, feeling something shift inside her. She didn't need validation anymore. She didn't need protection. She was ready for whatever came next. The mission brief was straightforward on paper. Extract a high-value intelligence asset from a compromised safe house in the city's industrial sector. The asset had information on the remaining network cells, names that Cross had refused to give up, connections that ran deeper than anyone had anticipated, but nothing was ever straightforward. The convoy rolled through pre-dawn streets, headlights cutting through fog that clung to the pavement like smoke. Mara rode in the second vehicle, wedged between Kess and Cole, rifle across her lap, mind running through contingencies. Pike was up front, studying satellite imagery on a tablet, his jaw set in that way that meant he was expecting trouble. Trent's voice crackled over the radio from her overwatch position. "Atlas Actual, I've got eyes on the target building. No visible sentries, but the thermal's picking up movement inside. At least 4 signatures, maybe more. Pike keyed his mic. Copy. Any indication they know we're coming? Negative, but the asset signal went dark 20 minutes ago. That was the problem. The asset, a former network facilitator who'd turned informant, had been transmitting location data every hour. Then, silence. Either the equipment failed or someone found him. Mara's gut said it was the latter. Pike must have been thinking the same thing because he turned to address the team. We go in assuming hostile presence. 2-man teams. Kess and Cole, you take the east entrance. Vance, you're with me. We breach west and clear toward the center. Trent, you've got overwatch and emergency exfil if this goes sideways. Copy that, Trent replied. The vehicles stopped 2 blocks out. Operators dismounted in silence, moving through alleys slick with oil and rainwater. The safe house was a 3-story brick building, windows boarded, covered in graffiti. It looked abandoned, which was exactly the point. Mara stacked up behind Pike at the west entrance, her breathing controlled, her focus absolute. She could hear Cole and Kess positioning on the far side, their movements barely audible, even over comms. Pike counted down with his fingers. 3, 2, 1. The door exploded inward under the breaching charge. Mara flowed through behind Pike, rifle up, scanning corners, clearing angles. The interior was a maze of rusted machinery and collapsed walls, shadows pooling in every corner. Clear left. Clear right. They moved deeper, footsteps muffled by debris. Mara's instincts were screaming. Something was wrong. The thermals had shown movement, but the building felt empty, too empty. Then she heard it. A faint hiss. Mechanical. Deliberate. Sir! The explosion ripped through the second floor. The shockwave slammed Mara into a wall. Her ears rang. Dust and smoke choked the air. She rolled to her feet, coughing, searching for Pike. He was down, bleeding from his temple, but conscious. I'm good. Go! Gunfire erupted from above. Muzzle flashes lit up the darkness. Rounds chewed through metal and concrete, forcing Mara into cover behind a support beam. Kess's voice burst over the radio. Contact! East side! Multiple hostiles! Fall back! Pike shouted. This is an ambush! But Mara wasn't falling back. She was moving forward. Because she'd seen something in the smoke. A shape, dragging another shape toward the rear of the building. The asset, still alive, being extracted. She didn't call it out, didn't wait for orders. She just moved. Mara sprinted through the chaos, rifle up, firing controlled bursts at the hostiles above. One dropped, then another. She vaulted over debris, crashed through a rotting door, and found herself in a narrow corridor. Ahead, 2 men in tactical gear were hauling an unconscious figure toward a back exit. One of them turned, saw Mara, and raised his weapon. She fired first. Center mass. He went down hard. The second man dropped the asset and dove for cover, returning fire. Rounds sparked off the walls. Mara pressed forward, using the corridor's tight angles to her advantage, cutting off his escape routes. Drop it! The man hesitated. Then, slowly, he lowered his weapon. Mara approached carefully, rifle never wavering. She kicked his weapon away, zip-tied his wrists, and then turned to the asset. A middle-aged man, bruised and bleeding but breathing. Can you walk? He nodded weakly. Mara hauled him to his feet and keyed her radio. Atlas Actual, I've got the asset, West Corridor. Requesting exfil. Pike's voice came back, strained. Copy. We're holding the east entrance, but we've got more inbound. Move fast. Mara dragged the asset toward the exit, the bound hostile stumbling ahead of her. But as they reached the door, a voice stopped her cold. Going somewhere, Vance? She spun. Chief Nolan Cross stood in the doorway, bloodied and bruised, holding a pistol aimed directly at her chest. Mara's mind raced. Cross should have been in custody, should have been locked down, processed, buried in legal proceedings. But here he was, free, armed, smiling that same predatory smile. How? You really think they could hold me? Cross stepped closer, weapon steady. I've been playing this game longer than you've been alive. I've got friends in places you can't even imagine. Mara didn't lower her rifle. It's over, Cross. The network's done. You're done.
Am I? He gestured around them. Looks to me like I'm the one holding the gun, and you're the one who walked into my trap. This wasn't your trap. You didn't plan this. Cross's smile faltered, just for a second. Mara pressed. You're a pawn. Always have been. The people running this network, they don't care about you. They'll burn you the second you're not useful. Wrong. Cross's voice hardened. I built this. I recruited. I organized. I made it happen. You were used.
And when they realized Pike was closing in, they let you take the fall. Cross's hand trembled. Shut up. You think escaping custody makes you powerful? It makes you desperate, because now you've got no support, no backup, no exit strategy. Mara took a step forward. You're alone, Cross. And you know it. For a moment, something flickered in Cross's eyes. Doubt, maybe, or fear. Then it hardened into rage. I said, shut up! He fired, but Mara was already moving. She twisted sideways, the round snapping past her shoulder, and brought her rifle up in one fluid motion. Their shots rang out simultaneously. Cross stumbled backward, clutching his chest, blood blooming across his tactical vest. He looked down at the wound, then up at Mara, eyes wide with disbelief. You actually... He collapsed. Mara stood over him, breathing hard, weapon still raised. She checked for a pulse, faint, fading. Cross's lips moved. You think you won? Mara knelt beside him. I think you had a choice, and you chose wrong. We all choose wrong. Eventually. His eyes went glassy, still, silent. Mara stood, hands shaking now, the adrenaline finally catching up. She took a breath, then another, and then she grabbed the asset and kept moving. Outside, the extraction team was waiting. Pike limped over, bloody but functional, and grabbed Mara's arm. You good? Yeah. Cross? Dead. Pike's expression was unreadable. Good. He looked at the asset. Get him to the medics. We're pulling out. The team loaded up, moving fast, covering each other's backs as they withdrew. Trent provided suppressing fire from her perch, keeping the remaining hostiles pinned while Atlas escaped. The convoy roared back through the city, sirens wailing, radios crackling with damage reports and casualty assessments. Miraculously, no one from Atlas had been killed. Injured, yes. Shaken, absolutely. But alive. Mara sat in the back, staring at her hands. They were steady now, calm. She'd killed Cross. Not in rage, not in vengeance, but because he'd given her no choice. And she felt nothing. No guilt, no satisfaction, just the quiet certainty that it had been necessary. Kess leaned over. You okay? Mara looked at him. I will be. That's not an answer. It's the only one I've got. Kess nodded slowly. Fair enough. The debriefing was mercifully short. The asset was secured. The intel was being processed. Cross's body was recovered and confirmed. The remaining network cells were being rolled up across the region. It was over. Captain Frost entered the room midway through, her expression neutral. She listened to Pike's report, reviewed the evidence, and then turned to Mara. Petty Officer Vance, walk with me. Mara followed her out into the corridor, heart pounding despite her best efforts to stay calm. Frost didn't speak until they were alone. Then, you've had quite a week. Yes, ma'am. Cleared of charges, commended for bravery. And now you've killed a senior chief in the line of duty. Mara met her eyes. He fired first, ma'am. I defended myself and the asset. I know. The evidence supports that. Frost paused. But you need to understand something. You're not invisible anymore. People are watching you, evaluating you, deciding whether you're an asset or a liability. And what have they decided? Frost almost smiled. That you're dangerous. In the best possible way. Mara blinked. Ma'am? You think independently. You act decisively. You don't wait for permission when lives are on the line. Frost's expression softened, just slightly. Those qualities make you valuable, but they also make you a threat to people who prefer order over effectiveness. So, what are you saying? I'm saying you've earned your place, but you'll have to keep earning it every day, Every mission. Frost held her gaze. Can you do that? Mara didn't hesitate. Yes, ma'am. Good. Dismissed. That night, Atlas gathered in the common room one last time before deploying to their next assignment. The mood was subdued but steady. They'd taken hits, lost blood, but they'd won. Pike stood at the center, beer in hand. To the ones who made it and the ones who didn't. The team echoed the toast. To the ones who made it. Mara drank, feeling the weight of everything settle over her like a blanket. She looked around the room, at Kess, laughing with Cole, at Trent, cleaning her rifle with methodical precision, at Pike, talking quietly with the junior operators, building them up the way good leaders did. This was her team now, her family, and she'd fight for them, bleed for them, die for them if necessary, because that's what operators did. Rowe appeared in the doorway, hands in his pockets, looking older but no less sharp. He caught Mara's eye and jerked his head toward the exit. She followed him outside. They walked in silence until they reached the edge of the compound, where the city lights flickered in the distance. Rowe spoke first. You did it. Did what? Proved you belong, not just to them, to yourself. Mara looked at him. It doesn't feel like I proved anything. It just feels like I survived. That's what proving yourself is. Surviving when everyone expects you to break. Mara absorbed that. What happens now? Now you keep going. Keep getting better. Keep saving lives. Rowe paused. And maybe, eventually, you teach someone else how to do the same. Like you did. Like I tried to. Mara smiled, small, genuine. You did more than try. Rowe clapped her shoulder. Take care of yourself, Vance. The world needs more people like you. People like me? People who see clearly, who act justly, who don't back down when the fight gets hard. He smiled. Heroes, even if they don't realize it yet. He walked away, disappearing into the night. And Mara stood there, alone under the stars, feeling something settle deep in her chest. She wasn't perfect. She wasn't invincible. She wasn't even certain she'd made all the right choices. But she'd tried. She'd fought. She'd survived. And that was enough. 6 months later, Mara stood in front of a new class of recruits. Young faces, eager eyes, the same uncertainty she'd felt once upon a time. Pike had recommended her for an instructor position, teaching advanced tactics and unconventional warfare. She'd resisted at first, but he'd been insistent. You've got something they need to learn. Don't waste it. So here she was, teaching. She looked at the recruits and spoke clearly. Most of you will wash out. Some of you will quit. A few of you will make it through. Silence. Nervous shuffling. And for those who make it, you need to understand one thing. This job isn't about being the loudest or the strongest or the most aggressive. It's about being smart, adaptable, and willing to do what's right even when everyone else tells you you're wrong. A recruit raised his hand. How do you know when you're right? Mara thought about that, about the canal, about Cross, about every moment where she'd had to choose between safety and truth. You don't. Not always. But you trust your training, you trust your instincts, and you trust that if you're acting with integrity, the outcome will justify the choice. And if it doesn't, then you learn, and you do better next time. The recruit nodded slowly. Mara continued. You're going to face people who doubt you, who underestimate you, who think they know better just because they've been here longer. She paused. Don't let them define you. Define yourself, and then prove it every single day. The recruits absorbed that. Some looked inspired. Some looked terrified. Good. They should be both. After the class, Mara walked back to her office, a small space with a desk, a window, and a view of the training grounds. She sat down, exhaled, and pulled out a folder. Inside were letters, handwritten, from operators she'd served with, from families of people she'd saved, from commanders who'd initially doubted her. One letter stood out. It was from Pike. Vance, Ikis, you asked me once what happens when you prove yourself. The answer is simple. You keep proving yourself, not to anyone else, but to the person you want to become. You're on your way. Don't stop now. Pike. Mara folded the letter carefully and set it aside. Then she stood, walked to the window and looked out at the recruits running drills, struggling, pushing, refusing to quit. And she smiled, because she'd been there. She'd struggled, she'd pushed, she'd refused to quit. And she'd made it. Not because she was special, not because she was chosen, but because she'd decided every single day to be better than she was yesterday. That evening, Mara returned to the barracks. Kess was waiting, grinning. "Heard you're teaching now. How's it feel?" "Strange. Good. Terrifying. Sounds about right." He handed her a beer. "To the future." Mara took it. To the future. They drank in comfortable silence. And somewhere in the distance, the sun set over the mountains, painting the sky gold and red. Mara watched it, feeling the weight of the past few months finally lift. She'd been doubted, accused, hunted, broken down and rebuilt. But she'd survived. More than survived. She'd thrived. Because she'd learned the most important lesson of all. The people who doubt you don't define you. The people who support you don't complete you. You define yourself. You complete yourself. By choosing every single day to be brave, to be honest, to be kind, and to never, ever give up. Years later, when people asked Mara Vance what made her successful, she never talked about medals or commendations or missions gone right. She talked about the moments when everything went wrong, when she was alone, when she was afraid, when she had every reason to quit, and she talked about choosing to stay. Because courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the decision to act despite it. And heroes aren't born. They're forged, one hard choice at a time. Some heroes are loud. Some are decorated. Others stand quietly in the cold, choosing truth over safety. And that kind of courage doesn't need applause to endure. If you've ever been doubted, underestimated, or dismissed, this story is for you. Keep fighting. Keep proving them wrong. Not because they deserve to see it, but because you deserve to become it.